In the sleek conference room of Pierce Enterprises in Manhattan, a tense silence fills the air. Daniel Pierce, CEO of one of New York's most powerful companies, sits at the head of a long table. He's in his early 30s, handsome in a tailored suit, with sharp blue eyes that scan a line of hopeful applicants. He dismisses them one by one with a curt nod. Too polished, too eager, too forgettable. The staff exchange confused whispers as the last candidate steps forward, Lauren Hayes. She's unremarkable at first glance, dressed in a plain gray blazer, her hair pulled back tightly, her face bare of makeup. Daniel leans forward, his gaze lingering a beat too long, then says, "You're hired." The decision shocks everyone, but no one dares question him. Lauren nods quietly, her expression unreadable, and exits the room. Lauren's voice narrates as she walks alone down a busy Manhattan street. 5 years ago, I walked away from everything. My family, my love, my life. Now I'm back, hiding in plain sight, to take it all back. Her words are soft, heavy with longing and resolve. 5 years earlier, at a lavish masquerade ball in a grand Manhattan hotel, Lauren moves through the crowd in a shimmering gown, her face partially hidden by a mask. She was a rising star in the business world then, a name people knew. Across the room, Daniel, younger and less guarded, locks eyes with her. The music swells, a slow waltz, and he crosses the floor to take her hand. "You're the only one I see tonight," he whispers, his voice low and warm. They dance, their chemistry electric. Later, on a quiet balcony, his lips brush hers, tentative at first, then urgent. It's a night neither can forget. A moment that changes everything. Lauren stands in her small Brooklyn apartment, looking into a mirror. She applies subtle makeup, not to enhance but to dull her features, to erase the woman she once was. "I was someone back then," she narrates, a name people knew, a face they recognized. But after that night, everything fell apart. A newspaper headline flashes in her mind: Hayes & Co. bankrupt after deadly warehouse fire. Her father, a kind man with tired eyes, perished in the blaze. Lauren, pregnant and grieving, fled New York, leaving Daniel behind without a word. She gave birth to twins, Jackson and Grace, and raised them in secret, far from the city's chaos. Now she's returned with a purpose. Vincent Cole, a ruthless businessman, orchestrated the ruin of her family. She's certain of it. Pierce Enterprises, Daniel's empire, is her way in, her chance to uncover the truth. Lauren adjusts her blazer in the mirror, her hands trembling slightly. "I didn't come here for a job," she says, her voice steadying. "I came to find what was stolen from me, and maybe, just maybe, to face the man I left behind." On her first day at Pierce Enterprises, she walks through the bustling lobby, past polished employees who glance at her with curiosity. She's a nobody to them, a plain face in a sea of ambition. She steps into the elevator and Daniel enters too. The doors close, trapping them in silence. He stands close, his cologne faintly familiar, stirring something deep within her. "Why do I feel like I know you?" he asks, his tone casual but his eyes searching. Lauren forces a smile, deflecting. "Just one of those faces, I guess." The elevator dings and she slips away, her heart pounding. Daniel watches her go, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. He shakes it off, returning to his office, a sprawling space with a view of the city. He sits at his desk, flipping through Lauren's sparse resume, her photo clipped to the page. Plain, unremarkable, yet something nags at him. A memory he can't place. Lauren sits in her cubicle, her desk a mess of files. She pulls out a hidden photo of her twins, Jackson with his mischievous grin, Grace with her bright eyes. "This is for you," she whispers, tucking it away. Her real work begins now, sifting through Pierce Enterprises records, hunting for traces of Vincent Cole's dealings. She knows he's tied to Eurasia Corp., a company on the brink of collapse, and she suspects Daniel's firm is his next target. That night, Lauren sits on the couch in her apartment, a glass of wine in hand, staring at an old photo from the masquerade. Her and Daniel, mid-laugh, masks dangling from their hands. "I didn't mean to fall for you," she narrates, her voice breaking. But that night you were all I wanted. She sets the photo down, resolve hardening in her eyes. Now I have to face you again, not as the woman I was, but as someone new, someone who can't afford to feel. In the next room, her twins sleep, their small forms curled under blankets. There, her strength, her reason. The next day at Pierce Enterprises, Daniel calls Lauren into his office, his tone clipped. "You're on the Eurasia project," he says, handing her a stack of files. "Don't disappoint me." She nods, meeting his gaze for a fraction too long. There's a spark there, buried but alive, a thread tying them across 5 lost years. As she leaves, he leans back in his chair, muttering to himself, "Who are you? Lauren Hayes?" The question hangs in the air, unanswered. Lauren's voice returns. "He doesn't know it yet, but I'm the secret he never saw coming, the love he couldn't forget." Lauren Hayes sits at her cluttered cubicle in Pierce Enterprises, the hum of Manhattan outside the windows a constant reminder of the city she once ruled. She's been at the company for a week now, her plain gray blazer and quiet demeanor blending her into the background. Files pile up around her, each one a potential clue to Vincent Cole's schemes. She's methodical, flipping through reports on Eurasia Corp, the failing company she believes he's manipulating, but her focus wavers every time Daniel Pierce walks by. He's the CEO, her boss, and the man she left 5 years ago after a night that still haunts her dreams. Today, he stops at her desk, his voice crisp. "Stay late tonight. I need the Eurasia numbers by morning." Lauren nods, keeping her eyes on the papers, afraid he'll see the truth in them. That evening, the office empties out, leaving just Lauren and Daniel. The city lights glow through the glass walls as they sit across from each other at a conference table, spreadsheets spread between them. He points to a figure, his hand brushing hers by accident. The touch is brief, electric, and Lauren pulls back too quickly. Daniel looks up, his blue eyes narrowing. "There's something about you I can't shake," he says, his tone softer than usual. Lauren forces a laugh, deflecting. "Long hours make everyone seem familiar, don't they?" But her heart races, the memory of his lips on hers flooding back. She sees it in his face, too, a flicker of something he can't name. He leans back, studying her. "Maybe," he mutters, but he doesn't push further. They work in silence, the tension thick, a past neither acknowledges simmering beneath the surface. The next day, chaos breaks into Lauren's careful routine. She's in the middle of a call with her twins' preschool when her phone buzzes with a text. The babysitter canceled last minute, sick with the flu. Lauren has no choice. She picks up Jackson and Grace from school and brings them to Pierce Enterprises, hoping to keep them quiet in a corner of her cubicle. Jackson, 5 years old with a mischievous streak, scribbles on spare paper while Grace, his gentler twin, clutches a stuffed bunny. Lauren whispers to them, "Stay here, okay? Mommy's working." They nod, but trouble finds them fast. Grace wanders off, her tiny footsteps leading her to Daniel's office. He's on a call, pacing, when she tugs his pant leg. "Are you my daddy?" she asks, her voice clear and innocent. Daniel freezes, the phone slipping in his hand. Lauren rushes in, her face pale. "Grace, honey, come back to Mommy." She scoops her daughter up, avoiding Daniel's gaze. He ends his call abruptly and steps closer. "They're yours?" he asks, his tone a mix of surprise and curiosity. Lauren nods, forcing a smile. "Yes, just kids being silly. The babysitter canceled, I had no choice." Jackson peeks in, waving shyly, and Daniel kneels to their level. "Hey, little guy," he says, ruffling Jackson's hair. Grace giggles, reaching for him, and for a moment they're a picture of something Lauren can't let herself imagine. Daniel stands, his expression unreadable. "They're cute," he says simply, but his eyes linger on Lauren, searching for answers she won't give. She hurries the twins back to her desk, her chest tight. "They can't know," she whispers to herself. That night, alone in her Brooklyn apartment, Lauren replays the scene. She sits on the couch, the old masquerade photo in her hands. Daniel's laugh, his touch, the way he looked at her today with the kids. Why does my heart race every time she's near? Daniel's voice echoes in her mind, though he never said it aloud. She knows he feels it too, the pull they can't escape. She narrates softly, I thought I could keep him at a distance, but every look, every word pulls me back to that night. She sets the photo down, her resolve wavering. I'm here for revenge, not love. But with him, it's never that simple. In the next room, Jackson and Grace sleep, their soft breathing a reminder of what's at stake. Back at Pierce Enterprises, Daniel sits in his office, the city skyline stretching before him. He pulls Lauren's resume from a drawer, staring at her photo. Plain, unremarkable, yet something stirs in him. He thinks of Grace's question, "Are you my daddy?" and Jackson's shy wave. They're just kids, he tells himself, but the thought lingers. He picks up the phone, hesitating, then sets it down. I should check her background, he mutters, but not yet. Instead, he leans back, closing his eyes. A memory flashes. The masquerade, a woman in a shimmering gown, her laugh lighting up the room. Who are you, Lauren Hayes? He whispers to the empty office. His voice tinged with longing he doesn't understand. The next morning, Lauren arrives at work, her twins safely back at preschool with a new sitter. She's buried in Eurasia files when Daniel approaches, his tone brisk. Meeting in 10. You're presenting. She nods, gathering her notes, but as they walk to the conference room, he slows his pace. Your kids. They're sweet. How old are they? He asks, casual but probing. 5, she says, her voice steady despite the panic rising. He stops, doing the math in his head, but says nothing. In the meeting, Lauren lays out the Eurasia numbers, her voice confident, her mind racing. Vincent Cole's name comes up, a shadow in the data, and she catches Daniel's eye. He nods slightly, a silent agreement forming. They're on the same side, for now. After the meeting, Lauren lingers in the empty room, her hands shaking. She narrates. He's getting closer, asking questions I can't answer. But every time he looks at me, I see that night again. She remembers the waltz, his hand on her waist, the way he made her feel alive. I told myself I'd forgotten him, but I haven't. Not even close. Across town, Daniel drives through Manhattan, his thoughts on Lauren. He pulls over near Central Park, staring at the spot where he once dreamed of a future with someone he couldn't name. She's hiding something, he says to himself, but why do I want to protect her anyway? That evening, Lauren tucks Jackson and Grace into bed. Grace yawns, clutching her bunny. I like the tall man at your work, Mommy, she says sleepily. Jackson nods. He's nice, like a daddy. Lauren kisses their foreheads, her throat tight. He's just my boss, sweethearts. She lies, but their words echo in her mind. She steps into the living room, picking up the masquerade photo again. I can't let him in, she narrates, her voice trembling. Not when I'm so close to the truth. But he's already there, in every beat of my heart. At Pierce Enterprises, Daniel stands by his office window, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. He thinks of Lauren's quiet strength, the way she handles herself, the kids who seem to adore her. I don't know who you are, he says aloud, but I need to find out. He sits down, pulling out his phone, hesitating over a contact labeled security. He could dig into her past, uncover her secrets, but he sets the phone down, his hand falling to his side. Not yet, he whispers. A decision rooted in something deeper than suspicion. We're tied together, Daniel and I, by a night we can't escape. He doesn't know my truth, but I feel his every step closer. I came for revenge, but what if I find love instead? Lauren Hayes sits at her desk in Pierce Enterprises, the hum of Manhattan a distant murmur through the glass walls. It's been weeks since she started, and the Eurasia project has drawn her closer to Daniel Pierce. They've been working late nights together, poring over files, their conversations shifting from business to fleeting personal moments. She's careful, keeping her past buried, but every glance from him chips away at her resolve. Today, she's on a call with the preschool, checking on Jackson and Grace. They're fine, the teacher says, just full of energy. Lauren smiles, distracted, unaware that Daniel stands nearby, his phone pressed to his ear. He ends his call just as Jackson's voice crackles through her speaker. "Mommy, when are you coming home?" Daniel freezes, the word mommy echoing in his mind. He steps closer as Lauren hangs up, her face paling when she sees him. "Everything okay?" he asks, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "Yes," she says quickly, "just the kids." He nods, but something shifts in his expression, a question forming he doesn't voice. That evening, Lauren returns to her Brooklyn apartment, the weight of the day pressing on her. She tucks Jackson and Grace into bed, their small hands clutching her sleeves. "Mommy, do you like your boss?" Grace asks, her voice sleepy. Lauren laughs softly. "He's nice to work with, that's all." Jackson grins. "He's cool, like a superhero." She kisses their foreheads, her heart aching. "Good night, my loves," she whispers, stepping into the living room. She picks up the old masquerade photo, her and Daniel mid-laugh, and narrates. "He's getting closer to the truth, and I don't know how to stop him. Every time he looks at me, I'm back in that ballroom falling all over again." She sets the photo down, resolve wavering. "But I can't let him in. Not yet." Across town, Daniel drives through Manhattan, his thoughts tangled. He pulls over near Central Park, the same spot where he'd once imagined a future with a woman he couldn't name. Grace's question, "Are you my daddy?" and Jackson's "Mommy" replay in his head. 5 years old, Lauren had said. 5 years since that night at the masquerade. The math gnaws at him. He grips the steering wheel, muttering, "It can't be," but the pieces fit too well. He drives to Brooklyn on impulse, parking outside Lauren's building. He sits there, watching her window, the light flickering as she moves inside. "I need to know," he says to himself, stepping out of the car. Lauren hears a knock at her door, her pulse jumping. She opens it to find Daniel, his suit rumpled, his face a storm of emotion. "We need to talk," he says, stepping inside before she can protest. The apartment is small, cozy, photos of Jackson and Grace on the walls. He turns to her, his voice low. 5 years ago, you left me without a word. No note, no goodbye. I woke up alone and you were gone." Lauren's breath catches, her eyes wide. "Daniel, He cuts her off, stepping closer. "Those kids, Jackson and Grace, they're 5. Are they mine?" His words hang heavy, demanding an answer. Lauren's hands tremble, tears welling. "I didn't want you to know," she whispers. "Not like this." He stares at her, disbelief warring with something softer. "Why?" he asks, his voice breaking. Lauren sinks onto the couch, her defenses crumbling. "After that night, everything fell apart. My father died in the warehouse fire. Vincent Cole ruined us. And I was pregnant, alone. I couldn't face you, not with pity or duty tying you to me." She wipes her eyes, looking up at him. "I loved you, Daniel. That's why I left." He kneels before her, taking her hands. "You think I wouldn't have stayed? That I wouldn't have fought for you?" His voice is raw, unguarded. "I loved you then, and I still do." Lauren shakes her head, pulling away. "It's too late for that." But he doesn't let go, pulling her into his arms. "It's never too late," he says, and kisses her. The kiss is slow, desperate, a bridge across 5 lost years. They are on the street now, outside her building, the city lights casting shadows around them. His hands cup her face, her fingers clutch his jacket, and for a moment, the world fades. When they part, breathless, Daniel rests his forehead against hers. "We have kids, Lauren. Our kids. Let me be part of this." She nods, tears falling freely. "Okay," she whispers. The word, a surrender and a promise. They stand there, wrapped in each other, the night quiet except for their breathing. The next day, Daniel arrives at Lauren's apartment again, this time in daylight. Jackson and Grace run to the door, peering up at him. "Hi, superhero," Jackson says, grinning. Grace hugs his leg, shyly offering her bunny. Daniel kneels, smiling. "Hey, you two." Lauren watches, her heart swelling. Margaret Pierce, Daniel's grandmother, arrives unannounced, her silver hair impeccable, her presence warm yet commanding. She takes one look at Jackson and gasps. "He's you all over again, Daniel, at that age." She turns to Lauren, eyes softening. And you, my dear, you're the family I've prayed for. Lauren blinks, overwhelmed. Mrs. Pierce, Margaret waves a hand. Call me Margaret. We're past formalities now. Margaret sits with them, sipping tea as the twins play nearby. I knew Daniel lost someone years ago, she says to Lauren. He never said it, but I saw it in him. You're her, aren't you? Lauren nods, glancing at Daniel. I didn't mean to hurt him, Margaret smiles. Love doesn't always mean staying, but it does mean coming back. She pats Lauren's hand, then turns to Daniel. Bring them to my birthday next week. It's time the family met. Daniel agrees, his hand finding Lauren's under the table, a quiet reassurance. That night, Lauren and Daniel sit on her couch, the twins asleep. She tells him everything. Vincent Cole's betrayal, the fire, her years in hiding. He took everything from me, she says, her voice hard. I came back to make him pay. Daniel listens, his jaw tight. He's been circling Eurasia, trying to bleed it dry. I've suspected him for a while. He takes her hand, his grip firm. We'll face him together, you, me, and the kids. We're a team now. Lauren looks at him, the man she loved, the father of her children, and feels the weight lift. Together, she echoes, leaning into him. Daniel leaves late, pausing at the door. I meant it, he says, his voice low. I love you, Lauren. Always have. She smiles, small but real. I know. He steps into the night and she closes the door, narrating softly. He's in my life again, not just as a memory, but as a promise. I came for revenge, but he's giving me something more. She touches her lips, the kiss still warm, and feels hope flicker for the first time in years. At Pierce Enterprises, Daniel sits in his office staring at a photo Lauren gave him, her and the twins smiling. He traces their faces, his own softening. My family, he whispers, a vow forming. He picks up the phone, dialing his head of security. Look into Vincent Cole, everything he's done, every move he's made. I want it all. He hangs up, leaning back, determination settling in. No one hurts her again, he says to the empty room, his voice fierce with love. The truth is out, and it binds us tighter than I ever imagined. He's not just the man I loved. He's the home I've been searching for. But Vincent's still out there, and our fight's just begun. Lauren Hayes stands in her Brooklyn apartment, adjusting a simple dress in the mirror. It's the night of Margaret Pierce's birthday, a grand event at the Pierce family's estate just outside New York City. She's nervous, not just about meeting Daniel's extended family, but about the plan they've set in motion. Vincent Cole's shadow looms larger with every piece of evidence they uncover, his ties to Eurasia Corp pointing to fraud and worth. Daniel arrives to pick her up, his suit sharp, his smile warm. You look beautiful, he says, kissing her cheek. Jackson and Grace bounce around him, excited. Superheroes here, Jackson cheers and Grace hugs his leg. Lauren laughs, but her eyes meet Daniel's, a silent understanding passing between them. Tonight's more than a party, she says quietly. He nods. We'll get him, together. They drive to the estate, a sprawling mansion aglow with lights and laughter. Margaret greets them at the door, her silver hair gleaming, her arms open wide. My family, she says, pulling Lauren into a hug, then kneeling to ruffle Jackson's hair. You're the spitting image of Daniel at 5. Grace offers her bunny and Margaret beams. Such a sweetheart. Inside, the party buzzes with guests, champagne flowing, music drifting through the air. Lauren stays close to Daniel, her hand in his, but her mind races. She's brought a cake, a small gesture for Margaret, baked with the twins. She sets it on the dessert table, unaware of the eyes watching her. Rachel Bennett, Daniel's childhood friend, approaches them, her smile tight. So, you're the mystery woman, she says to Lauren, her tone clipped. Daniel frowns. Rachel, ease up, she's with me. Rachel shrugs, but her unease lingers. She's been distant since Lauren arrived, and tonight she's jittery, clutching a glass too tightly. Unbeknownst to her, her brother Gregory has slipped her a vial earlier, whispering, It's just something to knock Margaret out for a bit. Keep that woman away from Daniel. Rachel, trusting him, doesn't question it. During a quiet moment, she sprinkles the powder into Lauren's cake, thinking it's harmless, a prank to disrupt the night. The party rolls on, and Margaret takes the stage, her voice carrying over the crowd. Tonight, I celebrate not just another year, but the family I've gained. Daniel, Lauren, Jackson, Grace, you're my heart. Applause erupts, and Daniel squeezes Lauren's hand, whispering, she means it. Margaret cuts into Lauren's cake, taking a small bite, smiling at her. Delicious, dear. But moments later, she sways, her hand clutching her chest. She collapses and panic sweeps the room. Daniel rushes to her side, shouting, call an ambulance. Lauren kneels beside him, her face pale. Margaret, hold on, she pleads, guilt twisting her gut even though she's done nothing wrong. Guests murmur, pointing at Lauren. She brought the cake, someone says. Rachel steps forward, her voice trembling. It was her. I saw her fussing over it. Daniel turns to Lauren, confusion in his eyes, but before he can speak, police arrive, summoned by an anonymous tip. An officer approaches. Lauren Hayes, you're under suspicion for poisoning Margaret Pierce. Come with us. Lauren freezes, the accusation cutting deep. She looks at Daniel, expecting doubt, but he shakes his head. She didn't do this, he says firmly. Lauren touches his arm. I'll go. If it helps find the truth, I'll do it. She's chosen to be the bait, a plan she and Daniel hatched with his private investigator earlier, suspecting Vincent or someone close is behind this. At the station, Lauren sits in a cold interrogation room, her hands clasped. Daniel arrives, slipping past officers to reach her. He kneels by the bars, grasping her hands. I'll bring you back, I swear, he says, his voice fierce with love. I know you're innocent. We're close to the real culprit. Lauren nods, tears in her eyes. I trust you, she whispers, her fingers tightening around his. Protect the kids. He kisses her knuckles, a promise sealed. Outside, he meets his investigator, who's traced the tip to a burner phone. It's not Vincent, the man says, someone inside the family. Daniel's jaw clenches, his mind racing. Back at the estate, Margaret stabilizes in the hospital wing, the doctors confirming it's not fatal, just a sedative overdose. Daniel returns, gathering Jackson and Grace, who cling to him, scared. Where's Mommy? Grace asks, her voice small. She's helping us fix this, he says, hugging them close. He confronts Rachel, his tone hard. What did you do? She breaks, sobbing. Gregory gave me something. He said it'd just make Margaret faint to keep Lauren away from you. I didn't know it was dangerous. Daniel's eyes darken. Where's your brother? Rachel shakes her head. He left after it happened. Daniel tracks Gregory to a warehouse in the city, the man pacing with a phone in hand. Gregory turns, sneering. You're too late, Pierce. Your precious family's falling apart. Daniel steps closer. You poisoned my grandmother. Why? Gregory laughs bitterly. She ruined my life, took my mother from me years ago, left me to rot with the Bennetts. Daniel frowns. Margaret saved your mother, sent her for treatment when she was sick. Gregory falters, doubt creeping in. Before he can respond, a woman steps from the shadows, older, frail. Gregory, stop, she says. It's his mother, alive, her voice trembling. Margaret didn't hurt me. She gave me a chance to live. Gregory drops to his knees, stunned. Mom, he whispers, tears falling. I thought she killed you. His mother kneels beside him, touching his face. You've been lied to, son, by Vincent, by everyone. Daniel watches, his anger softening to pity. Turn yourself in, he says. End this. Gregory nods, broken. I will. His mother hugs him, a reunion born of pain. Meanwhile, Vincent Cole, exposed by Daniel's investigator for fraud at Eurasia, flees the city, only to be caught by police at the airport, his empire crumbling. Lauren's released from the station, the truth unraveling fast. Daniel meets her outside, pulling her into his arms. It's over, he says, his voice thick. Gregory confessed. Vincent's done. She buries her face in his chest, relief washing over her. I thought you'd doubt me, she admits. He tilts her chin up, kissing her softly. Never. You're my everything. They drive back to the estate, where Margaret, now awake, sits up in bed. She takes Lauren's hand. You're stronger than you know, dear. You belong with us. Jackson and Grace climb onto the bed, hugging her, and Lauren smiles, tears falling. That night, Daniel and Lauren sit on the estate's porch, the twins asleep inside. He wraps an arm around her, the city lights faint in the distance. We made it through, he says, his voice low. You, me, the kids, we're a family. She leans into him, narrating softly. I gave myself up to protect him, and he fought to bring me back. This isn't just revenge anymore. It's love, real and unbreakable. Daniel kisses her forehead, a quiet vow. No one's taking you from me again, he whispers. Vincent's gone, Gregory's facing his truth, and we're still standing. But love isn't just victory, it's what comes after, and with Daniel, I'm ready to find out. Lauren Hayes stands in her Brooklyn apartment, sunlight streaming through the windows. It's been days since the chaos of Margaret Pierce's birthday, since Vincent Cole's arrest and Gregory Bennett's surrender. The weight of revenge has lifted, leaving room for something new. She's folding laundry, a mundane task, when Daniel Pierce knocks on her door. He steps inside, his suit traded for a casual jacket, his smile soft. Thought I'd take you somewhere, he says, nodding to Jackson and Grace playing nearby. All of us. Lauren raises an eyebrow, curious. Where? He grins, a spark in his eyes. You'll see. They drive into Manhattan, the twins chattering in the back seat until Daniel pulls up at Central Park. It's a crisp day, leaves crunching underfoot as they walk to a quiet spot near the Bethesda fountain. Jackson and Grace run ahead, chasing each other, while Daniel stops, turning to Lauren. He takes her hands, his voice low. 5 years ago, I lost you. No goodbye, no chance to fight for you. I've lived with that hole ever since. Lauren's breath catches, her eyes locked on his. He kneels, pulling a small box from his pocket, a simple ring glinting inside. This time I want forever. Marry me, Lauren. The twins freeze, watching wide-eyed. Grace claps, squealing. Say yes, Mommy. Jackson nods, grinning. Lauren laughs through tears, nodding. Yes, she says, and Daniel slips the ring on her finger, standing to kiss her, deep and sure. That night, back at the apartment, they sit on the couch, the twins asleep. Lauren traces the ring, her voice soft. I never thought I'd get here. With you. Daniel pulls her close. We've got time now. All of it. But as the days pass, planning the wedding, Lauren feels a restlessness stir. One evening, she finds Daniel in the kitchen, pouring coffee. We need to talk, she says, her tone serious. He sets the mug down, facing her. What's wrong? She takes a breath. I love you, Daniel, more than anything. But I've spent 5 years running, hiding, fighting. I need to know who I am outside of that. He frowns, processing. What are you saying? She touches his hand. I want this, us. But I need time first, to heal, to find myself. Daniel pulls back, hurt flashing in his eyes. You're leaving again? Lauren shakes her head. Not forever, just for a while. The kids need you, and I need this. He paces, running a hand through his hair. I just got you back, Lauren. How do I let you go? She steps closer, cupping his face. You're not losing me. You're giving me a chance to come back whole. He searches her eyes, then nods slowly. Okay. But I'm not waiting forever. She smiles, kissing him softly. I wouldn't ask you to. They hold each other, the decision bittersweet but honest, a testament to their love. The wedding day arrives, a small ceremony planned at the Pierce estate. Lauren stands in a guest room, her white dress simple yet stunning, Margaret adjusting her veil. You're radiant, Margaret says, her voice warm. Daniel's a lucky man. Lauren smiles, but her hands tremble. She glances at the twins, Jackson in a tiny suit, Grace twirling in her flower girl dress. Mommy, you look like a princess, Grace says, hugging her. Lauren kneels, pulling them close. You two are my world, she whispers, her resolve faltering. She steps outside, the guests waiting, Daniel at the altar, handsome and steady. but as the music starts, she slips away, leaving a note on the dresser. Daniel waits, his heart pounding, until Margaret approaches, her face pale, handing him the paper. He reads, his voice breaking as he speaks the words aloud. "Daniel, you're my heart, but I need to find my soul. The kids are ours. Take care of them. I love you." He stares at the note, a mix of pain and understanding washing over him. Jackson tugs his sleeve. "Where's Mommy?" Daniel kneels, forcing a smile. "She's going on a little adventure, buddy. We'll see her soon." Grace hugs him, tears in her eyes, and he holds them both, whispering, "We're okay." The guests murmur, confused, but Margaret steps forward. "Let's give them space," she says, guiding everyone inside. Hours later, Lauren boards a plane at JFK Airport, her bag light, her heart heavy. She narrates, "I'm not running from him. I'm running toward myself, trusting he'll be there when I'm ready." She looks out the window as the plane takes off, New York shrinking below. Across the city, Daniel drives to the airport, too late, his jaw tight. He parks, stepping into the terminal, scanning the crowd. "Lauren Hayes," he shouts, his voice lost in the noise. "I'll find you, no matter where you go." He stands there, alone, a man determined to wait. Back at the estate, Daniel tucks Jackson and Grace into bed, their small forms curled under blankets. "Will Mummy come back?" Grace asks, clutching her bunny. Daniel kisses her forehead. "She will, sweetheart. She always does." Jackson nods. "She loves us, and you?" Daniel smiles, his throat tight. "Yeah, she does." He steps outside, sitting on the porch, the night quiet. He pulls Lauren's note from his pocket, reading it again, then folds it carefully. "I'll give you your time," he whispers. "But you're mine, Lauren. Always." Lauren's plane lands somewhere far off, her destination unknown. She steps into a new city, the air unfamiliar, and takes a deep breath. "I love you, Daniel," she narrates, her voice steady. "And the kids. This isn't goodbye, it's a pause, a chance to heal so I can come home." She walks into the crowd, a woman reclaiming herself, her ring still on her finger, a promise she won't break. Days later, Daniel sits in his office at Pierce Enterprises, the twins drawing at a small table nearby. Margaret enters, her eyes soft. "She'll come back," she says, patting his shoulder. "Love like yours doesn't fade." He nods, managing a smile. "I know, I just wish she'd stayed." Margaret sits beside him. "She needed this, Daniel, and you're strong enough to wait." He looks at Jackson and Grace, their laughter filling the room, and feels a quiet strength settle in. "Yeah," he says. "I am." Lauren's voice returns, weaving through the moment. "Love isn't about staying, it's about trusting we'll find each other again. I left to mend what's broken in me, but my heart's still his, always will be." She's walking through a new street, her steps light, a sense of freedom mingling with longing. Daniel takes the twins to Central Park, the same spot where he proposed. They play near the fountain, and he watches, his mind on Lauren. He pulls out his phone, typing a message he doesn't send. "Wherever you are, I'm here, waiting." He pockets it, joining Jackson and Grace, lifting them into his arms. "Let's go home," he says, his voice steady. They walk off together, a family incomplete but unbroken. "I said yes to him, to us, but I needed this first, a journey alone to bring me back to him. He's my forever, and I'll find my way home someday."